Hello, Suela here with Expressive Brush Art Studio. In this project, I am going to show you how to create a piece of artwork using watercolors and a Sharpie. Materials that we need are watercolors. You can use whatever watercolors you have available. Some they come in liquid form, like this one that I'm using from Blick Materials. You can use them in tubes or pens, so whatever you have available. I am using a Sharpie. Make sure you have a pencil, and I'm also using a brush. This is medium flat brush. Make sure you have a paper towel to wipe your brush and some water for rinsing. Let's start. First, we are going to start by sketching it. I usually sketch it with a pencil, but I am going to actually sketch it for you with a Sharpie. And the way I start is, I start from the top, so from the beginning. And we're going to make like a curvy line. And we're going to go right in the center, and we're going to do a branch. So these are branches that we are sketching here. And I'm also going to make a few leaves. So after you sketch them with a pencil, make sure you go over with Sharpie, because Sharpie kind of defines the shape much better, and this way you know where you're going. And then we're going to do a circle. So these three circles, are going to define the position where my flowers are going to be. And the way I do them, so don't really have to be really precise or perfect. And let's do another one right here. And as you see, this is more an oval shape, and the same thing with the other one here. Sometimes I tend to change the shapes a little bit so they're not all the same. So as you see, this one it's more round, and then these other two tiny ones are more oval. And then we'll do the little berries. And you can add as many little circles here for the berries as you prefer. Does not really matter. And the same here. So basically just create a pattern and repeat that pattern. Now make sure you have some space here at the bottom, because we are going to do the writing, and the writing is made with love. So let's start right about here. And the letters that I am going to use are a bit stretchy, like they're long rather than being wide. So made. And you are going to write this, like I said, with a pencil first. And then you're going to go over with Sharpie on top of the pencil. Made with. Let's add a bit of line here for the T. And then love. So when we do love, it's a bit bigger compared to these other two words. So L. And then you can add lines or curves to make it a bit more attractive, I would say. And then after we do this, you can go back and make this on top of it again with Sharpie, but make them a bit thicker. So let's start with watercolors. That's it for sketching. So the method that I'm going to start, it's called wet on dry technique, which means that my colors and my brush is going to be wet, but the paper is dry. So water, and we're starting with red. So all around. and I'm using the whole brush. So all around. Now it's okay if you go outside the line, that's perfectly fine. We are not aiming for perfection here. We are aiming more for the technique of the watercolors. And then, so going back, spreading this color. And I'm going to go back again with another layer of just color, just paint, to make this a bit more stronger. Usually watercolors are pretty good with holding the color, but again, it depends on the quality that you are using. Some of them might fade a little bit, but most of them will stay pretty well. Now, if you noticed, right here in the middle, I've left some white space. So please do keep that white space, leave it in there, save it. And as a second step, I am mixing red and blue. So it's going to give you like a dark purple. Now make sure it's not too dark. I'm going to put 2 drops of red and 1 drop of blue to achieve this color. And then water. And then let's go around this color and we're going to add some purple. So again, I did save the white spaces in there. Basically what we're trying to do here, we're kind of imitating the petals of a flower. So that's why we're going in a circle and we're leaving some white spaces in there. Now if you feel that this is not dark enough or it's a bit light, what you can do is you can go back and then add a bit more color. So what I'm doing right now, I'm just adding a bit of blue on top of it. Just simply dab it, simply touch it a little bit to add some shading, because what we are doing right now, we're just adding a bit of shading with this other color. Just like drawing in painting, we add different tones, and we do this with color. So one more time, blue. Rinse. I don't want this to be too blue. I want this to be more purple. So if you think that it was a bit too much of a blue, then I'll kind of blend this together. All right, let's rinse the brush. We'll leave it for now. That's it. We're not adding too much details. We're going to go to our next flower, this one here. And this is going to be mostly orange. So to make orange, we're going to mix red and yellow. So I'm going to mix them on the pen or whatever you have available. So let's mix the colors first. And then we're going to go to do this flower. Now, as you see, I'm not following perfectly the line here. So see where my black line is with Sharpie? It's different from where I put the color here. So I'm playing around. I'm not following the lines very much. So again, leaving some white spaces as well. I just got a bit more color here, a bit more red, because I wanted this to be a bit darker. So red and yellow, but in some parts of the flower, I want a bit more red. I'm just putting a bit more red in there on top. Okay, so we're going to move to the next one. And this one, it's orange as well, but there is more yellow to it. So see how I'm using the brush, so it's white. And then here in the corner, because let's say this is the thickest part of the flower, or there's more petals in there. And on this one, I'm using just a little tiny touch of my brush with the side of my brush and making this a bit thinner. Going back. So not putting too much pressure on the brush at this time, because the more pressure you put, the thicker it will be. And then just a little bit of touch of red here in the corner. Now I don't want to make all both of these flowers the same color, so what I'm going to do is just going to wipe off my brush here. And then on the second one, I'm going to add more yellow. So color yellow. And let these two colors blend together. So I'm just going around the orange that we had before with yellow. And this time I'm not mixing it, I'm simply putting the color yellow. Okay, so I'm going to leave it as it is. Swipe the brush, rinse, and then I'm going to go back to this flower, but this time I am simply going to use water. So just touch a little bit on the outside with water. I'm going to put it on the center here. And watercolor works pretty good actually. They kind of spread very easy. So it's not difficult at all to work with watercolors. It's just a bit of practice. It's all in the technique that you are using. Alright, so I'm going to leave the flowers for now the way they are, and then we'll come back, add more to it. I'm going to continue with the leaves. So for the leaves, I am going to start with yellow. So again, not using too much water here. I'm going to do the leaves all yellow first. So a bit of paint and water. And let's do this. Now make sure, because make sure you don't touch the colors. Sometimes the watercolor, they bleed very easy. And if they do, it's okay. No judging there. It happens. So let's do all this yellow. And then on top of it, I'm going to go with green. So we're going to mix blue and yellow, because at this point we do not have green, but we can make our own green. So blue and yellow. And with the green that we just mixed, we're going to go only in one side. So that's it for now. And let's move on to the other one here. And just a little bit on my left here. So I'm doing green mostly in one side, and the reason why is because the shading is usually one-sided rather than in both sides. And then with a bit of water, just blend this. So this way it's not too strong. So I am seeing both colors. So I have both green and yellow at this point. I'm just going to go on top with a bit of green. So simply this way they don't look too yellow. All right. We are also going to do the branches here, and those are going to be with a bit of green. So let's follow the line. And we're going to put both colors, green and yellow. So after we do the green, I'm going to put a bit of yellow. And this is going to be the light of the branches. So just a bit of yellow here, right beside green. And even if you go over the green, that's fine. It's still okay. In the middle here in the center, I am going to add more blue. So it's a mixture of blue and green. And we're going to fill this space. And as you see, I'm not putting too much pressure, so very little pressure. Because watercolors are very easy to work with, they flow really easy. All right, so I'm going to let all this dry. And we are going to go do the berries. Now these berries, you can do them with small brush, and you can do them with black color, or you can use a Sharpie. So for this project, I actually decided to use a Sharpie, but whatever you feel comfortable with. I kind of like Sharpies because they're easy to work with and you can manage them very well. Because sometimes it could be a bit difficult for the colors because the colors kind of spread much quicker. But with Sharpie, you are more in control. All right. And then we're going to go down, after we're done with berries, we're going to go down where we have the letters, and we are going to put a bit of color in there. So we're going to put a very light purple. Now at this point is one time with Sharpie on top. So they're not very thick, so they're pretty thin at this point. And let's make some purple. So red and blue. I already had some from before, but I do not want this to be too dark, so I am going to make this very, very light with lots of water. So it's going to be very light purple, and I am going to do this in this direction, left and right. Make sure these two colors don't touch, otherwise they will bleed. They will kind of mix. And when you do the purple down here, make sure you also leave some white spaces. And you probably will be able to see still the pencil that you had underneath. Some people, they like to erase it, make it nice and clear. I usually don't. I leave the pencil in there. So even if it's visible, I still leave it. I kind of like it. It adds another extra layer or another extra texture for me. So whatever you guys prefer. So if you'd like to go back and erase all the pencil that you have underneath, you can do that, or you can leave it just like I did. So that's it for this part. We are going to go back here, but this has to dry a little bit because it's a bit too wet at this moment. So because it's too wet, the only thing I can do is I'm going to do the centers of the flowers with Sharpie. They should be okay here. If the paper is wet, the Sharpie does not work well, so make sure that the space that you're working with is dry. So let's do the centers, and then we're going to let this dry a little bit. Shouldn't take too long, and then we'll come back, we'll add more details. Alright, so I've let this dry a little bit. My flowers are still not completely dry, but during this time that they are drying up, we are going to work down here with the letters. So let's make them a bit more pretty or prettier. And we're going to thicken this up. And what I usually do is on one side, I make them a bit usual than the other one. So let's go like about 2 or 3 times here in one side. And then I'm leaving this other ones here untouched at this point. So I'm not going to go over again. So we're just on my right hand side. And when you add this kind of touch, it kind of makes it look more defined, and it's a bit more, I would say, more appealing. More appealing, that's the word, yes. So it's up to you how thick you want to do this, or how many times you want to go over. I wouldn't overdo it, because sometimes we tend to overdo things. And instead of making them better, sometimes we make them worse. Okay, so I think this is good here. And if you want, you can make this a bit thicker here with and then I am going to thicken up this part. There are some pens that they are like dual tip pens. If you have those, you can use those. But myself, I usually prefer Sharpies. I like them, they work pretty well for me. I know some people, they use Tombos, like all kinds of markers, but like I said, it's a matter of preference. Okay, so I am almost done here. And maybe this part a little bit. And that's it. Let's add a couple of more berries here, because I think this one is a bit empty. I can add a couple more. Okay, so let's see, my leaves are dry, so I can add more details up there. So let's go right here with black. And also, right in the middle here in the center, I'd like to scribble, and these kind of scribbles actually add details to the work. So don't be afraid to do that. The leaves. Okay, so this flower is dry, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around here with Sharpie, and again, I'm not looking for perfection at this point. We're kind of imitating the petals of the flower, and we can go on the outside as well here. It's all a matter of having fun and being creative, rather than being very strict and looking for perfection. Okay. Same thing on this one. And if the paper is not dry yet, guys, you'll have hard time actually working with Sharpie, because Sharpie works much better in dry paper. So make sure it is completely dry before you go over with Sharpie on top. And that's about it for this project. I think looks pretty good to me. Thank you very much for being here with me, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next project. Bye-bye.